Before we begin today's episode, we want to provide a brief content warning. In this episode, we briefly discuss sensitive topics such as mental health, depression, suicide, and alcoholism. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek support from a mental health professional or contact a crisis helpline.
Hello, ghosties. You're listening to Not My Ghost.
Not my problem. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jen.
Whether you're a skeptic, a true believer, or somewhere in between, join us for a journey into the unknown.
Because remember, when it comes to the paranormal, it may not be our problem.
But it's certainly someone's problem.
So, Kelly, I have figured out that I absolutely hate recording in person.
I agree.
It is the worst because the stuff never works.
Every time we go to record, it's an hour's worth of troubleshooting to get the mics and everything to work properly. Whereas when we do it remotely from different locations, it seems to go a lot smoother.
Yes. And I got really, really close to throwing my computer at the wall about 5 minutes ago.
But she didn't.
I didn't. I withheld my anger.
Yes. And now, here we are.
Here we are. It's working.
Yay.
At least hopefully.
I guess we'll find out when we're done recording this episode and we go to listen back to it. If it's all there, then we're good. If not, take two.
Take two.
Take 8.
Yeah, take something. So my question for you today, Kelly, is how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
And that is absolutely the question of the day.
That's not actually my question for you. But as we were testing our audio, we wanted to just talk into our mics to make sure it was picking it up. And I forgot what that was. And I started to try to say it and I stumbled over it. And then it just came to me randomly. So I screamed it at Kelly because I remembered it and I was excited. Sorry, I forgot to mention we are in our scripted, unscripted banter section of the episode. The question I have for you is if you could live in any fictional world, where would it be and why?
Any fictional world.
Any fictional world.
Oh my goodness, you answer first. I have to think.
Mine is Harry Potter because I'm a millennial and I grew up waiting for my owl that I still think got lost somewhere, is still flying around into a tree somewhere with my letter really, really late. But I would want to live in the Harry Potter world.
Okay, so I read a series of books when I was in my 20s from David Eddings. It was the Malaria. So the first part of the series had like 6 books and the second part of the series had like 6 books. And then there were separate books about the main characters. And it was about sorcerer, sorceress, fate of the world kind of stuff. And that would be like book-wise would be more of my reference than movie-wise. But I would say Harry Potter would be pretty cool.
Okay, Kelly.
Yes.
You do realize Harry Potter was a book.
Well, yeah, but mine wasn't a book and a movie is what I mean.
Okay.
Like, so mine, I only have the visual in my head to go off of.
Okay. Fair.
Rather than seeing it out on
just when you said it was a movie, I was like, it was a book first.
It was.
And I will die on that hill because the books are so much better than the movies.
Yes.
So
I guess I have not read them.
You've had me drunk read some of it too.
Yes. Drunk Harry Potter readings was a thing.
Yeah. Back in the day.
That happened. It's hard for me to think of fictional worlds.
See, for me, I feel like the Harry Potter world is placed in the real world. It's just got that aspect of it that the muggles don't know about. So it is the real world. There's just an added part to it.
If you would have asked me this when I was about 8 years old, I would have said Star Wars. I would have been in the Star Wars movies.
Okay. Seems like a lot of fighting, running, and
But if you knew my childhood, that was pretty much life. So,
yeah. So at least you could have maybe been a Jedi.
right.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like it.
Okay.
So what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to follow up from a previous episode and talk about paranormal games.
Awesome.
In the second episode, we'll delve into even more eerie and mysterious paranormal games. These games challenge you to peer beyond the veil of the ordinary into the realm of the unknown. We'll uncover more We'll uncover more chilling
Dear. Blooper reel.
Blooper reel. We'll uncover more chilling legends that share the hair-raising experiences of those brave enough to play these mystifying games. Get ready to be captivated by the origins, the lore, and the haunting tales that surround these supernatural activities.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I'm excited. Again, facts for this were kind of challenging and kind of the same with the last episode. It was kind of hard to find facts about it specifically. So I just looked up some statistics of what people believe. In 2017, Chapman University's Survey of American Fears found that 52.3% of Americans believe in ghosts or spirits.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty high. That's over half. And that's who are self-reporting. So you have to feel like there's probably a little bit more that are just like, I'm not going to tell them I believe in this. They're going to think I'm crazy.
So I wonder what percentage, because there's going to be a percentage of people that believe, a percentage of people that do not believe, and a percentage of people that are willing to believe if presented with proper evidence.
I was really hoping that you were going to say what the percentage of people that have claimed to have some sort of experience.
Oh, well, what percentage of people have claimed to have some sort of experience?
I'm glad you asked, Kelly, because the same Chapman University survey found that 19.7% of Americans have claimed to have some sort of paranormal experience.
Awesome.
I thought that was pretty high too. Again, self-reported. So you have to think that the number's got to be a little higher because you're going to have people that are going to be like, well, that really wasn't paranormal. I was just like crazy. Because they don't want to believe that something paranormal happened to them.
So do you have a percentage of people that actively seek it out?
No,
to have an experience?
I did not get that percentage.
Okay.
But maybe we should call up Chapman University and say, hey, we need more percentages.
Listen to our water truck podcast.
Yes, please do. And then one more statistical fact, and this will tie together the whole episode. This survey was conducted by Pew Research Center in 2009, and it found that 29% of Americans have admitted to using a Ouija board.
Oh, okay. I have a question.
What's your question?
Pew Research? Like pew or like church
how
pew?
it's spelled, P-E-W.
Huh. I was just wondering if there was a correlation when you think of a pew in a church. Yeah. And then a lot of people think that Ouija boards are evil or demonic.
I didn't even think about that. I didn't look into what the Pew Research Center was. I just found the fact.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
And then I'm going to do some more like scary psychological facts like I kind of did in the first Paranormal Games episode. Engaging in paranormal games can have significant psychological effects. Some players have experienced nightmares, anxiety, and paranoia long after playing any of these types of games, particularly if they believe they encountered something supernatural during the game. And then studies also show that the power of suggestion can cause people to perceive paranormal activity. So if participants are told they might experience something supernatural, they are more likely to report eerie sensations, which will then ultimately help reinforce their belief in the paranormal.
Yeah, sounds accurate.
I also just want to throw in our disclaimer again from the first episode that I want to warn everyone once again that the games and the rituals that we discuss in this episode are rooted in legend and lore. And while they might be very captivating to hear, especially from two very entertaining individuals, attempting to play them can pose both physical and psychological risk. We strongly caution you to play these games at your own risk and to remain mindful of any possible repercussions. Safety should always be your top priority. But with that said, let's dive into the realm of some paranormal games.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so this was the game that I had researched for the first episode that we didn't get to, and I had never heard about it. And it sounds terrifying and fascinating. And it is called One Man Hide and Seek.
How does that work?
Okay, I'm going to tell you, Kelly. Thank you for asking. First, I'm going to tell you a little history about the game before we get into how to play. So One Man Hide and Seek, also known as One Man Tag, is a ritual for contacting the dead. So these spirits that are restless and wandering the earth are always looking for bodies to possess, according to the history.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that at all.
Hold up. It gets a little better. In this ritual, you summon the spirit by offering it a doll instead of a human body.
Okay, that's a little better.
The instructions for playing One Man Hide and Seek were initially posted on a Japanese horror bulletin board in July of 2007. They were later reposted on the now defunct Encount site in August 2007, so a month later. And then in March 2008, a horror documentary film was released where investigators attempted to play One Man Hide and Seek. And the instructions for the ritual were then shared on occultic.net that same year. And the ritual first made its appearance in English-speaking countries on September 16th, 2008, through a blog post on a Japanese horror blog, Saya in Underworld. So that's where it comes from. I couldn't find much more history about it, but that's what I could find. So I'm going to read the instructions on how to play this creepy game.
It doesn't sound like something I want to necessarily play.
No.
I have no other information than what you've given me, but I feel like I'm already out.
I'm out. And I know all the information.
Well, my instincts are correct.
Your instincts are correct, especially when you hear the story. And I read through a lot of stories on Reddit, and it was really tough to just pick one, but I'm out. So what you need before you begin this game, you need a stuffed doll.
So no porcelain.
No porcelain doll. It needs to be stuffed, and it must have limbs.
Is this like how the Annabelle, like Raggedy Ann thing got started, maybe?
Oh, I have no idea. Maybe.
Huh. Okay. Good.
You need to have rice enough to fill the doll, one needle, like a sewing needle, and a crimson thread. Not just red, crimson.
This sounds like a lot of work. I got to take the stuffing out of the thing. I got to put the ice.
It's a lot of work.
The ice in there, the rice in there.
I'm telling you, Kelly, if you put ice in the doll, it would melt.
Yeah.
Over time.
Well, I don't know. Spirits they say the energy, it gets colder in the room. Maybe it'll get really cold and just keep.
No, at some point you have to put the doll in a bathtub so the ice will melt.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You need one pair of nail clippers. What? We'll explain why you need all these things as we get into the how to play. You need one sharp edge tool, such as a knife, a glass shard, or scissors. I don't know why a glass shard was included. I don't know who just has shards of glass laying around, but hey. And then you need 1 cup of salt water. Natural salt would be best. A bathroom with a bathtub and some form of counter. And some kind of hiding place, preferably in a room that you have purified with incense. And there must be a TV in this room. Okay, so that's all the things you need to play.
You just wonder, like, this is so elaborate. Who is really the first person that
did this?
And then it got a result? Because it sounds like an awful lot of preparation.
It does. Now we're going to get into the preparation.
Oh, okay.
Right? So take out whatever the doll is stuffed with, right? Once all of the stuffing is removed, you restuff it with rice. When I read that, I thought that I could take before I read more about it and figured out I was never going to do this, that I could take one of Ellie's toys, Ellie is my dog, that she has already de-stuffed for me because we have plenty of them lying around the apartment, that she has done all the hard work of de-stuffing it for me.
Yes.
So I had my doll right away. Then you are going to clip off a few pieces of your fingernails. That's why you need the fingernail clippers.
Oh,
And you are going to place them inside the doll. Then you're going to sew up the opening with the crimson thread.
no, I'm not.
When you've finished sewing, tie up the doll with the rest of the thread.
Tie it up like how? Like
I don't
untie it?
know. I wrap around. It didn't really say. It just said tie up the doll. So I would just think like wrap it around the doll. I don't know. Then you are going to go into your bathroom. You are going to fill your bathtub with water. And you are going to return to your hiding place and put the cup of salt water on the ground in your hiding place.
Return to your so you already have your hiding place.
Yes, you should
picked out.
Yes, the things you need. The list was a hiding place. So you already need to have the hiding place in mind.
And then you need to take the salt water and put it in the hiding place.
Yes, on the ground.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're getting into how to do it. You are going to give your doll a name. The name can be anything but your own name. When it is 3 a.m., say your name. So if I was doing it, I would say Jen is the first it. And you say this to the doll 3 times. You are then going to go into the bathroom and put the doll in the water-filled bathtub. Turn off all the lights in your house and go back to the hiding place and switch on the TV. And the TV should be switched on to some sort of static network.
Okay.
So the whole point is that sounds might come through, just like a spirit box. So some type of static network. You are then going to close your eyes and count down from 10. Once you have done that, return to the bathroom. And at this point, you should have whatever sharp edge tool, scissors, knife, glass shard in your hand.
I don't like where this is going at all.
You go to the bathtub and you say to the doll, I have found you, the doll's name, so whatever you decided to name it. And then you are going to stab the doll with the edge tool. Then you say, you are the next it, and the doll's name. You're going to take the doll out of the bathtub and leave it on the counter in the bathroom. As soon as you put the doll down, you run back to your hiding place and hide.
Wait a minute. Is this going to come in and stab me?
Just wait. Once you've decided that you have hidden long enough, you will pour half of the cup of salt water into your mouth. Do not drink it. Just hold it in your mouth. You're going to go get out of your hiding place and start to look for the doll. The doll is not necessarily in the bathroom where you left it, if the game has worked. Whatever happens, do not spit out or swallow the salt water. As you're looking for the doll, keep the salt water in your mouth. When you find the doll, pour the rest of the salt water in the cup over the doll, then spit out the salt water onto the doll and say, I win 3 times. This is supposed to end the ritual. After this, you want to make sure that you dry the doll, burn it, and discard it.
Question.
Yes.
What happens if you accidentally swallow the salt water?
I would think you can just take another sip as long as the cup isn't empty. So get a big cup. Didn't say anything otherwise.
Oh, okay.
I think the salt is supposed to be protection. So I think by having the salt water in your mouth, you are protected from whatever spirit entered the doll.
Right. Because I'm just wondering if that spirit is coming to stab me.
It might be.
Okay. Well, I don't like that at all. Yeah. So I will not be playing this game.
Okay. So the most important thing is do not stop this ritual halfway through. Once you have started, you must go through to the end. According to Creepypasta, this is a dangerous ritual, and they say they will not be responsible for anything that happens if you try it. And Kelly and I agree with Creepypasta. We will not be responsible for anything that happens if you attempt to play this game. There's some other things to keep in mind when you're playing. Do not leave your house until you have done the ritual. Every single light in your house must be turned off when you were told to do so in the directions. You must keep quiet while hiding. You do not need to put the salt water in your mouth in the beginning, only during the finishing part of the ritual and when you're looking for the doll. If you are living with someone else, you might put them in danger. which is why you should be the only person in your house playing, hence why it is called one man hide and seek.
That would never happen in my house with as many people live in my house.
Yes, it would be impossible. For safety reasons, it might also be best to keep all the doors in the house unlocked, including your front door, as well as having friends close by so that they can come and help you at a moment's notice if you need them. Keeping a cell phone close at hand would also be a good idea.
Yeah, you live way too far away from me to come help you if something happens.
Yeah. This story I got off of Reddit, and it was from an anonymous poster. I'm going to read their story now. And they first started with, warning, this is an extremely dangerous ritual. I advise you not to try it. So everything we are reading says, do not play this game. So their experience. I followed the instructions thoroughly, cutting the teddy I had chosen up, taking out the stuffing, and filling it with uncooked white rice. Then I put in my toenail clippings. I'm growing my fingernails out, so I didn't want to cut them. Before sewing up the doll with the red thread. It's supposed to be crimson. And then I tied the doll up with the rest of the thread. I took the doll with me to the bathroom and proceeded to fill the bathtub up with water, leaving the doll behind. I went to the kitchen and I filled up a glass with salt water. I took the salt to where I was planning on hiding, and I left it there before returning to the doll. I told you, your name is Maria, and I left and went on my phone for a couple of hours until it was nearly 3 a.m. At 3 a.m., I went into the bathroom with a pretty sharp kitchen knife. I lifted the doll saying, Maria is the first it. Then I put the doll in the bathtub. I took the knife with me to the kitchen where I made myself the glass of salt water. Then I went around the house, switching all the lights off, as well as turning the TV in the living room to static. I went to the closet I was planning on hiding in, bringing my salt water with me, and I closed my eyes and counted to 10. I'll have you know, I was really fucking scared at this point, but I wanted to go through with it since I didn't really think it was going to work. Plus, at this point, you've already started it. So, as I said before, you cannot end the ritual.
I have a question.
What's your question?
I thought at 3 a.m. you were supposed to say your name was the first it.
That's what I read, but this was his story.
Okay.
So
maybe that's why it went really bad for. I'm assuming. I have not heard this story, but
we'll see. After counting, I returned to the bathroom, knife in hand. I said to the doll, I have found you, Maria, which again doesn't make sense that he said you were in if he's the finder. So I think he messed up, or maybe he just typed it wrong.
Great.
Then I stabbed the doll before saying, now Maria is it 3 times. I left the knife behind along with the doll, and I ran back to my hiding place. My heart was beating really fast, and I was praying to God that this wouldn't actually work. I didn't know how long I had been in there. I couldn't have been in there more than a couple of minutes when I heard weird sounds coming from the television. The channels were changing on their own, perfectly timed to create the sentence, I am coming now. My stomach dropped and I felt sick. There is no way for me to explain to you how much this terrified me. And I have read this story and I'm still getting goosebumps reading this part. I filled my mouth with salt water just in case. Then I heard pattering from the hallway. I started regretting ever playing this and I was literally shaking in horror.
He heard footprints.
He heard footprints, Kelly. Those damn footprints get you every time. All while the pattering was moving around from room to room. I think this was when I started tearing up. I was freaking out, too scared to leave the closet. What happened next could have just been my imagination, but I can swear I started to smell rotten wood around me, as if the walls of the closet were rotten. It was so freaking bad, and it just scared me more. The channel started flipping like crazy, once again creating sentences. Where are you? I'm coming closer. I cried and decided it was time to end this. I shakily got out of the closet, almost too scared to move. I started looking around the house for the doll. I found it outside the kitchen. The kitchen was very close to where I was hiding. I spat the salt water I had miraculously managed to keep in my mouth on the doll, and then I realized I had forgotten the rest of the water in the cup. So I ran back to the closet, got the cup, and got back to the doll and poured it over it. My lips were quivering as I said, "I win," over and over again. Then when I wanted to cut the thread, I didn't know where the knife was. So I just ripped it with my hands. I dried and burned the doll afterwards, but I still don't know where that knife is. This game has made me so paranoid I can barely live in my house anymore. I can swear to you that I hear the pattering of the doll's feet some nights. Please don't ever play this.
It doesn't sound like you won.
It doesn't. The knife is gone.
Oh, that's really weird. I
Yeah.
don't like it. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Nope.
I don't like it. But this wraps up our deep dive into the unsettling world of one-man hide and seek. This game is not for the faint of heart, and its eerie reputation has left many questioning the boundaries between our world and the paranormal. If you ever decide to brave this chilling game, remember to follow the rules strictly and proceed with the utmost caution.
Okay. Well, I don't need to because I'm not playing this game.
No, never playing this game. Do you want to take a guess at what our next game is about?
Well, considering last night we laid out a Ouija board and had your friend over, and we tried to use the Ouija board to get something to happen. And we've had a lot of stories sent to us about the Ouija board.
Yes.
That we are probably going to be talking about the Ouija board.
We are. What a great guesser you are, Kelly. You should give yourself a pat on the back.
All right, here.
There you go. Perfect.
I did it.
And we'll talk a little bit more about our experience last night after I get into the history. In February 1891, advertisements for Ouija, the wonderful talking board, began appearing in newspapers, promoting a device that claimed to answer questions about the past, present, and future with remarkable accuracy. The board featured the alphabet, numbers 0 through 9, yes, no, and goodbye, along with a planchette to spell out messages. The Ouija board emerged from the 19th century American fascination with spiritualism, which held that the dead could communicate with the living. The Ouija board's invention was intertwined with this spiritualism craze. It offered a simpler, more accessible way for people to attempt to contact spirits, bypassing the need for a medium. The Kenyard Novelty Company, established in Baltimore, as we knew before,
Yes.
began manufacturing the boards, and by 1892, the company had expanded significantly due to the board's popularity. The Ouija board tapped into a unique cultural niche, marketed as both a mystic oracle and family entertainment.
Family entertainment.
Family
I
entertainment.
know a lot of people that would not consider the Ouija board family entertainment.
That's how it was marketed back in the day. Its broad appeal spanned various demographics driven by the human desire to believe in something beyond the tangible world. The desire was particularly strong during times of uncertainty, such as world wars, the Great Depression, the social upheavals of the 1960s. The board's popularity surged during these periods, reflecting society's needs for answers and comfort. Maybe the board is about to get another surge because I definitely think society needs answers and comfort right now.
You're not kidding.
However, the board's reputation shifted dramatically after the release of the 1973 horror film, The Exorcist, which depicted a young girl becoming possessed by a demon after using the Ouija board. This portrayal cemented the board's association with the occult and malevolent forces in popular culture. Religious groups denounced Ouija boards, and it became a staple in horror movies and stories. Despite its spooky reputation, some believe the claims have been debunked by scientific investigations, which reveal the Ouija board operates on the ideomotor effect, which is a psychological phenomenon where individuals move the planchette subconsciously. The principle has been known since the 19th century and can explain why participants often feel the board is moving on its own. Experiments have shown that when people believe they are not in control, their responses on the board can be more accurate. Researchers at the University of British Columbia's Visual Cognition Lab, that is a mouthful of a name.
Yes, it is.
Could you imagine if you work there? Where do you work? British Columbia's Visual Cognition Lab. I hope they have an abbreviation.
I'm sure they do.
They have explored the Ouija board's potential to tap into non-conscious knowledge. Their studies suggest that the board can reveal information that participants are not consciously aware of, offering insights into how the mind processes and retrieves information. The Ouija board's history is a fascinating blend of spiritualism, cultural shifts, and scientific curiosity. While some believe its mystical claims have been debunked, others swear that the Ouija board is a portal to the other side, making it a powerful tool for exploring the depths of the human mind and our fascination with the unknown.
Interesting.
Yes. So before I read the rules that I found online, I am going to reach over and grab the Ouija board that Kelly purchased and that we played last night. Because when we played last night and nothing was happening, I thought, this didn't even come with instructions. And then I turned the board over and it did. But they're not nearly as in-depth as what I'm about to give you.
Not at all.
So this is on the back of this board. How to play. Sit opposite your partner with the board between you and your fingers lightly touching the message indicator. One of you ask a question. Now concentrate very hard on the matter at hand and wait for the indicator to move and begin to reveal the answer through its message window. If nothing happens at first, try asking another question. Allow 1 to 5 minutes for an answer to come. Will it tell you yes or no? Will it give you a number or spell out an answer? For decades, players have brought their questions to the Ouija board. What you do with the information it reveals is between you and the mystifying oracle. Ouija, it's only a game, isn't it? So that's all the instructions the board actually gives you, which is horrifying when you hear stories, because I feel like there's a lot more you need to do when you play this game. So now I'm going to get into the in-depth instructions. And this came from an article that was called How to Use the Ouija Board Safely, 18 Rules, Do's and Don'ts, and Things You Should Know. And this was written by Matthew Oliver. And the link in our show notes if you want to check it out for yourself.
18 rules. Boy, these games that like, who has time for this stuff?
This is just, it's not like, that's not the whole setup. This is just kind of things you need to know.
Okay.
So things you should know. Pick a quiet place to use your Ouija board. Cleanse it with sage or incense to remove any negative energy, which we did last night.
We did.
Yes, we did. Then you're going to invite your friends to the Ouija board with you and make sure that everybody is in a good mood. We were all in good mood.
We were in a pretty good mood last night.
We were pretty happy. Always be polite to the spirit and always remember to say goodbye to end your session, which we
did.
You'll need to focus to connect to the spirit world. Choose a place where you feel peaceful and relaxed. Then silence your phone and any electronic devices so that you won't be interrupted. You can leave the lights on if it makes you feel comfortable. Spirits can feed off energy and sense fear. So if you're really afraid, you could be more of a magnet for any type of negative spirits. We did turn the lights off and lit some candles.
We did.
Just to kind of set the vibe. I feel like
I don't think any of us had any fear.
No.
At all.
No fear. The first rule of using a Ouija board is do not ever use a Ouija board in a graveyard.
Okay.
And the reason is graveyards have chaotic spiritual energy. And while it might make for a great story, you could have trouble connecting with a single spirit in a cemetery, and you may wind up with an unwanted entity. So again, cleanse the space of negative energy, just like you did with your board. So a cleansing can help protect you while you talk to the spirits. You can burn sage, you can light an incense, whatever you need to do to help purify your space. You can also surround the Ouija board with crystals, a circle of salt. Good crystals are black tourmaline, clear quartz, or amethyst. We had clear quartz.
We did.
So your board can hang onto energy. So it's always a good idea to cleanse it every time you use it, especially if you got the board from someone else and you don't know if it's ever been used before. But even with a new board, you still want to cleanse it because maybe the factory workers that made the board had fun with it. Who knows?
You just don't know.
Yeah.
Or so they didn't say goodbye. Somebody that had it before.
Exactly.
Didn't say
Always
goodbye.
cleanse it.
Yeah.
If you have sage, light it and just waft the smoke over your board. You could also sprinkle some rose water over the board while saying any type of simple protection spell or prayer. Like candles, they can help protect you from negative spirits. Black candles repel negative energy, so they make it harder for bad spirits to connect with you. White candles, which is one of the ones we had last night, can also help remove negative energy. And you can also burn a blue candle to help open the lines of communication between you and the spirit world. Now, preparing your participants. You need at least 2 people to use the Ouija board. You need multiple people to build up the energy and channel the spirits. Additionally, it's helpful to have someone who can take over and close out the session if you can't continue anymore. So if it gets too scary, you always want to make sure to close out the session. If you have more than 2 people, you might have one person write down what the spirit is spelling so it's easier to read the message. Make sure all participants are in a good mood. We've said this before. Spirits can feed off of your energy, so good vibes are essential. If you're feeling upset, you might accidentally attract a bad spirit. Ask each participant to do some sort of spiritual cleansing. Doing any type of cleansing ritual helps dispel any lingering bad vibes before you gather around the board, before you talk to the spirits. You could meditate. Try envisioning yourself surrounded by a bright cleansing light, which we did that.
We did do that, yes.
Before we started. If you want, you could say some type of prayer protection. So whatever works for you to just make sure you're getting rid of any of those bad vibes, you want to do that before you start. Now we get into talking to the spirit. So you want to set a positive intention for your session. So as a safeguard, you might state out loud that you're only interested in talking to friendly spirits. That way, you're not purposely drawing any negative entity to you. We also did that.
Yes.
Yep. We made sure we said we only wanted positive interactions. Then you got to just ask the spirit to introduce itself. Get an idea of who you're talking to. The ghost will feel better about talking to you if they can kind of introduce themselves a little bit. Some questions you might ask once you've made contact. What's your name? How old are you? Where were you born? When were you alive? You do want to be careful what you ask. Stick to positive questions only to stay safe. You could upset the spirit and you might get a rude answer, but do your best to ask questions that will keep the good vibes going. Don't ask for a physical sign that the ghost is there. It is so tempting to ask for proof, but resist the urge to be on the safe side. Don't give the spirit permission to do anything outside the Ouija board. I know my friend said something about like, oh, maybe one of the candles will flicker. And that's when I'd be like, no, we do not give permission for you to touch anything besides this board. Be polite to the spirit, right? Don't be rude. Spirits can get annoyed and upset just like anyone else. So don't ask questions that could be offensive and don't make jokes at the spirit's expense. That way you can avoid any unwanted negativity. Don't ask things like, how did you die? Why are you a ghost? Because that could upset the spirit. Also, don't ask, will any of us die soon? Because spirits can't see the future and they could get annoyed and might just decide to prank you by giving you an upsetting answer.
Oh, no.
Would be awful.
That sounds like something I would do if I was a spirit interacting with the board.
Same. Take everything the board tells you with a grain of salt. Just like people, spirits can lie. A playful ghost might try and prank you with a mean message. If the spirit says something upsetting, it's best to just ignore it. At any point, if someone feels uncomfortable, you want to end the session. Stop using the Ouija board if anybody senses bad vibes. Say goodbye right away and move on to another activity if things get too scary. Using the Ouija board should be fun for everybody, so if it is upsetting anybody in your group, it's probably best to just do something else. Always say goodbye to end the session.
Some people believe that not saying goodbye could leave the door open to the spirit. Sometimes the spirit will end the session first by moving the pointer to goodbye. If that doesn't happen, thank the spirit and push the pointer over to goodbye yourself. Always say goodbye, even if you don't get contact, just in case the spirit is hanging around but didn't move the pointer. After you say goodbye, flip the pointer over so it won't start moving around again. Burn sage, cleanse away any lingering energy, and make sure that you open a window or door first so the energy has a way to leave. You might also tell the spirits that they have to go. Pack up the board, place your pointer in the bag or back in its box, and make sure the pointer isn't positioned over the letters on the board because some people believe that the spirits can use the board without you there. If you want to use your board as decor, which is beautiful, you could, just make sure you don't put the pointer on top of it.
Oh, I would be so tempted to put the pointer on top of it. I really would. I think it kind of makes it. Or you can hang it. Oh, it'd be kind of cool if you could just like hang it in front of the board and then just watch it swing
start
back
swinging.
and forth.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That'd
Do
be
you imagine
awesome.
if you
just
had
like your air conditioning kicks on and you look over like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
What does it say?
Who's here? So when we did it last night, we got nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Not a thing.
No, didn't move at all. But we followed all the rules. Well, yeah, maybe me and you will try again tonight.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. It was a good time. But yeah, we tried a little bit and nothing happened. Now we're going to get into some personal stories. And I really wanted to find some stories for this that were more than just me reading somebody that I posted off of Reddit. So I went to Discord for this other podcast I listened to, Two Girls, One Ghost, which is an amazing podcast. You should go check them out. They're hilarious and tell spooky stories just like we do. I am on their Discord. I just posted out there like, hey, just started a podcast. We're really looking for Ouija board stories. So I had a couple people respond and email me some stories. So we're gonna read their stories. The first one is from Kat Rona. And she started with just giving us a little bit of a backstory before the actual story. So this is what she wrote in. I was 15. I took part in a psychic fair at a local new age store doing tarot readings. One of the women there had an angel board, which was essentially a Ouija board with pictures of angels on it. And you said a prayer to the archangel Michael before using it. I played it with her and it told me to ask some guy out that I had a crush on. I didn't, being a really nervous and shy, geeky girl. But I did go next door to the stationery store and get some angel stickers and then drew out my own board in a sketchbook. I played around and connected with a spirit who named himself Neil and another that named herself Sarah. Neil told me he died in a car crash and that he had been 22 years old and stupidly out drinking with his friends. Please do not drink and drive. That's from me, not her, but I'm sure she probably feels the same way.
Yes.
I don't recall much of what Sarah told me, but it was 20 plus years ago. Neil the spirit was most talkative. So this is now the story. That was just the backstory. My friend group at school heard my story about the board and wanted me to bring it so we could play around with it before class. One of my friends, we'll call her Annie, asked Neil where her ring was that she lost. He just kept repeating carpet, carpet, carpet. She was scoffing because she didn't have any carpet in her room, only tile. The next day, she came in and said that she found her ring tangled in the edge of the rug she had in her bedroom. It had a fringe and it was in there. My other friend, Ray, was all, that's basically carpet, you dork. Again, we were 15.
I don't know. I would have said that now, and I'm a lot older than 15.
Same. Annie was just like, whatever. And Ray asked if Annie had looked in the rug because Neil had told her carpet. She didn't answer that one, but Annie didn't play with the angel board again. Gradually, our interest in playing around with the board waned, asking Neil and Sarah about our classmates, relationships, and things like that. And it suddenly became dull, and the board sits in my sketchbook to this day. Hearing other people's stories, I'm glad that nothing awful happened, Maybe there was just something to the angel stickers after all. Thanks for reading my story and best of luck with your podcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you, Kat Rona. And then she actually wrote in a second story after that.
Oh, awesome.
I know. So we got 2 stories from Kat Rona. So here is her second one. Hello, ladies. Apologize for all the emails, but I figured I could send you the story as an addition anyway, given that it combines 2 topics. I met Emmy through Zoe, who I knew from my on-campus job, and Jen, not me, who was Emmy's roommate at the time. I had left my dorm and was just kind of wandering the floor when I was drawn down a corridor and found Jen and Zoe outside of Jen's dorm room doing tarot. Emmy was apparently inside using a Ouija board, and they were very uncomfortable. I do want to stop real quick and just point out that Kat Rona went to Flagler College, which is in St. Augustine.
Oh, yeah.
So she actually sent us some other stories that we might read on a future episode about some haunts and stuff she had at Flagler College.
Awesome.
So I sat down with them to chit chat, and at some point, Emmy came out of the room and we all went inside. For a while, I didn't really interact with Emmy at all because she was either in class or in the walk-in closet in the dorm room talking on the Ouija board. Sound like that girl was kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Okay. After a while, we found out she was talking to Ida, who was one of the wives of Henry Flagler, who built the Ponce de Leon Hotel that was now one of our dorms. She began to tell us that Ida spoke to her about her relationship with the Tsar of Russia and how she stabbed Henry with a pair of sewing scissors before she got sent away. She went on to write a story for the school's writing journal about Ida and her own conversations on the Ouija board with the Tsar of Russia. Fortunately, somewhere in our relationship, I have my own issues from college that meant some of my memories are hazy due to having, at the time, undiagnosed DID. Somewhere in there, she broke her obsession with the conversations with Ida. She became much more social. She wound up living with Zoe and I in an off-campus housing where she worked as a guide on one of the many St. Augustine ghost tours.
Awesome.
Our apartment had its own ghost who came along with the table we got from an estate sale. But I'm glad for Emmy that she didn't spiral down the same sort of obsessive path that Ida apparently did and wound up in an asylum. Thanks for reading. Well, thank you, Kat Rona. I'm looking forward to reading some of your other stories that you sent us on another episode.
Yeah, it's great that she has so many stories.
I love it.
I wonder if she is a little sensitive to spirits because there seems to be a lot of experiences that she has. Yeah.
Okay. So now this is the long one. And we just got this one sent to us. So I'm going to be honest, I have not actually read it yet. So this is going to be a journey for all of us.
Okay.
So this is from Jason, who also was someone who sent it to us from the 2 Girls, 1 Ghost Discord. So here is my Ouija board I told you on the 2 Girls, 1 Ghost Discord I would send in. This story took place when I was 15 years old. It was summertime, and I was spending the night at my cousin's house. I've never told anyone this story as we made a pact to never speak about what happened that night. This particular event involves 2 things that should probably never have been done together: a Ouija board and Bloody Mary. Amazing.
That is pretty awesome to think. We've got these 2 separate scary games that we can play, and we're going to put them together.
Do both of them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, love it. Now, I know what you're thinking. How exactly did this happen? Boredom, sugar, caffeine, curiosity? First, a little backstory. My cousins are several years younger than me. I have changed their names for their protection. At the time, they were Cindy, 12, Jared, 10, and Tim, 8. In hindsight, if I had known the events that would transpire that night, I, being the oldest one present, would have never allowed it to happen. Throughout the day, Jared, Tim, and I had been doing normal boy stuff, riding bikes, playing in the creek, catching frogs and water snakes, shooting BB guns while pretending we were hunting monsters and wrestling on the trampoline. Around 10 p.m., my aunt and uncle went to bed. They asked that we keep the noise down as my uncle had to work early in the morning, and told us not to stay up too late, knowing full well that we would.
Of course.
At midnight, we decided to come into the house and went downstairs to the basement where the bedrooms were. Cindy was in the basement living room watching a movie on TV. We decided we would all go see what she was watching. Turns out she was watching Halloween 2. We watched the rest of the movie with her and then decided to tell each other spooky stories. Cindy lit a few candles that were on the coffee table and Tim shut off the lights. We pretended the candles were a campfire and also got out a flashlight for the classic spooky storytelling effect.
Ooh.
We each took a turn telling spooky stories that were just randomly making up on the spot. Well, not all of them were made up. Some of the ones I told were real stories. After telling stories for a while, Sydney brought up the story of Bloody Mary. I had heard the story before, but Tim and Jared hadn't. Cindy tried to make her voice as spooky as she could for added effects to the story. I was trying hard not to laugh, but I could see the others were starting to get scared by it, especially Tim. It was Jared's idea to actually go to the bathroom and try to summon Bloody Mary. I had heard stories from the kids at school about summoning Bloody Mary and how some of them have had spooky experiences. I will admit I should have stopped things there, but I was also kind of curious to see if it would actually work. Teenage stupidity at its finest. We all went into the bathroom and placed one of the candles on the sink. The bathroom was kind of small with all 4 of us in it, and it was crowded. So I, being the tallest at the time, stood in the walk-in shower. So there was room for everyone to fit comfortably in the bathroom.
I would like to point out that Jason is not lame. They had a candle, not a flashlight.
They did have a candle and not a flashlight. You are not lame, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for doing it right. We followed the classic steps for the summoning. The others took turns spinning around in circles, 13 times each. I did not hear that part.
Spinning around in circles? No, I've never heard spinning.
That's new.
13 times was the first time I heard it on the Paranormal, the first episode.
Yeah.
I had only ever heard 3. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I opted not to spin in circles so I could be prepared to catch one of the others in case someone got too dizzy.
Good plan, Jason.
Good plan. We all took turns saying Bloody Mary's name until we had said it 13 times. Then we waited to see if she would appear. Naturally, the others kept trying to scare each other, hoping they would think it was the real Mary. Some time had passed without anything happening, and Cindy decided she was going back to watch more TV. Just as she was about to leave the bathroom, the 3 candles on the sink blew out. Naturally, everyone accused each other of blowing them out to scare everyone else. No one admitted to it, though. None of my cousins had the ability to see spirits, but me, being a medium, I could. Cindy tried to relight the candles, but only one of the 3 did. In the dim light, we looked around and saw no one but us standing there. Naturally, this caused the others to say, "Guess it didn't work. Bloody Mary isn't real." That's when I noticed something move in the mirror. At first, it was just a white streak that flashed across the mirror. I suppose some could argue it was from the candle flame or just a trick of the light. As I watched the streak move from across the mirror diagonally right to left, from the bottom corner to the top, it stayed at the top and then slowly started to take on more of a human form. Looking at the figure in the mirror, I couldn't make out any facial features at first. I noticed that the figure was standing next to me on my right side. At this point, I was standing halfway out of the shower. I turned to my right and I looked, but no one was there but my cousins. I turned back to the mirror and saw the figure was still there. I counted 5 people standing in the room, but only 4 of us were there. The mirror had started to fog up a little, and the word "hi" was now visible at the bottom corner of the mirror. No one had moved, though, so none of my cousins could have written it, and I was too far away to have reached the mirror without bumping one of them. Then I felt a cold hand brush against my cheek. At the same time, both Tim and Sydney said they felt cold chills run down their spines. Tim said he was really scared and wanted to leave. He fumbled around for a few seconds until he found the bathroom door handle. He quickly opened the door, ran out, slammed it closed behind him, which spookily blew out the candles. we weren't able to relight it. The three of us stood there waiting to see what would happen next. Both Sydney and Jared were too scared to move. Jared said he was starting to feel lightheaded, and Sydney said she felt like she was going to puke. I felt ice cold breath on the back of my neck.
No.
So I tried to help them shuffle around so Sydney could be closer to the toilet so I could catch Jared if he fainted.
No, sir.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
I'm out.
Yep.
I like how you weren't out when he felt the hand, but the cold breath, that did.
At least he didn't run out of the apartment naked, like the first story. The first story, yeah.
Normally, feeling such cold chills should have been terrifying, but as it had just been a hot day, the cold chills actually felt kind of good. Well, at least they did at first. Sydney fumbled with the toilet lid, trying to open it as she said she felt nauseous feeling in her stomach had gotten worse. Jared said he wanted to leave, so I was trying to hold him up and open the door at the same time. He then screamed and said, "Cold hands touched my cheek." Immediately after he said that, I felt a cold hand on my face too. He tried to run out the door, but because he was so scared, his legs were like jello, and he ended up slumping forward onto the floor instead. I helped get him to the floor so he wouldn't hurt himself, and then Sydney let out a short scream. She said she felt fingers run through her hair.
Oh, God.
Well, I love that. If it was a human.
Yeah, not like ghost fingers.
That ghost, though, I don't know. If a ghost wants to play with my hair, there are worse things it could do.
I guess I can't argue with that.
Yeah. She asked if it was me or Jared trying to scare her, and I said no. I told her Jared had fainted, and I was holding him in my hands. She then vomited into the toilet, and I felt something scratch across my shoulders. Okay, you can play with my hair, but don't scratch me.
Right.
Sydney said the only way we could get rid of Bloody Mary, according to kids at her school, was to flush her down the toilet.
Uh-huh.
Also, I've never heard that.
Never heard that, but I love it so much.
Cindy said she felt an ice cold hand on her head, pushing her face toward the toilet bowl. She screamed, "Fuck you," and flushed the toilet. After that, it seemed like it worked because everything started to feel hotter and more humid, like the normal summer air. I had just laid Jared on the floor in the hallway, and we were still standing in the bathroom doorway when I felt something fall into the back of my leg. It was Sydney. She had fainted after she had flushed the toilet. As she hit my legs, I fell backward on top of her, and I shakily tried to get back to my feet. And I honestly expected my aunt or uncle to come beckoning down the stairs at any moment, especially after Sydney had screamed. I got to my feet and stood there trying to figure out how I would explain this situation to them if they did come downstairs. Apparently, they must have been pretty sound sleepers because they never did come downstairs. With Sydney and Jared passed out, I slowly walked down the hall towards the living room, trying to find the hall light switch. Just as my fingers brushed the light switch, I felt something grab my leg, which caused me to kick my foot and jump a little. I flipped on the light and found Tim lying on the floor next to me holding his ribs.
Oh, no. Poor Tim.
It was him who had grabbed my leg. Apparently, when I kicked my foot, I had hit him in the ribs and knocked the wind out of him.
Oh.
I mean, Tim really should
not have grabbed his leg.
Not in the dark after a Bloody Mary experience. So I don't want to say you deserved it, Tim, but
but it was
a poor life choice, Tim.
Yeah, make better choices, Tim.
Yes. I asked if he was hurt, and he said no. Now that the light was on, I looked back down the hall and saw that Jared was now sitting up and holding his head. I asked him if he was okay, and he said he still felt kind of dizzy. One by one, I helped everyone get back to the living room. Jared was lying on the beanbag chair. Sydney was sitting in the recliner, and Tim was sitting on the couch. I got everyone to drink some water, and they started to feel better. I just got to say, what a great guy.
Yeah.
You're a great guy.
Really took care of everybody.
He did. Now, you would think by this point, after everything we experienced, we had all learned a good lesson and would just go to bed. Of course we didn't. It was only 1:45 and we weren't feeling tired yet. So we decided to stay up and watch another movie. Tim picked one off the shelf, and in a weird twist of fate, he picked The Exorcist.
Oh, no.
Definitely not the best movie to watch after the experience we all just had. I told him it was a really scary movie and tried to get him to pick something else so he wouldn't have nightmares. But he just said, I like scary movies. And besides, I'm not scared right now, so I'll be okay. I should have just stopped right there and said it was time for bed. Hindsight is always 20/20, right? We started watching the movie, and as expected, my cousin started to get scared from it. It didn't really help things when my cousins asked if a person could really be possessed by a demon, and I said yes. Hearing that made them more scared. The movie got to the scene where Reagan and her mother were using the Ouija board, and naturally, my cousins had questions about it. They wanted to know if a Ouija board could really work like the movie showed, and I said no. I told them that Ouija boards could communicate with spirits, but sometimes the movies really exaggerate the things that could happen while using one. I did warn them that if a Ouija board was used with the wrong intentions, then bad things could happen to whoever was using it. My cousins said that they wanted to try a Ouija board, and I told them we didn't have one to use. I was hoping that would be enough to deter them from the idea, but unfortunately it didn't. Sydney said she wanted to make a Ouija board and went to find something that she could make one with. It was a literal facepalm moment. I secretly hoped that she would not be able to find anything to make one, or that her parents would tell us that it was time for bed. No such luck. She returned a few minutes later with a good-sized piece of cardboard and the lid from a Pringles can for a planchette. I mean, very resourceful.
Yeah, so I was going to say.
Yeah. We made a rudimentary Ouija board on the cardboard and put it on the coffee table. Everyone sat around the table as best we could, and we all put our fingers on the planchette. We circled the board with the planchette, once for each person, and then began asking questions. Is there anyone here with us? The planchette moved to yes. Are you a ghost? The planchette moved to the right slightly and then back to yes. How did you die? Fire. Did you die in a fire? Yes.
We just learned you're not supposed to ask those kinds of questions.
We did. Can you give us a sign that you're here? Yes. Suddenly, the lights flickered. We also just learned that you're not supposed to ask that. So you are breaking all the rules here, guys. But you're young, so I'll give you a break. Tim and Jared were starting to get spooked now. Jared said that it was just a coincidence. The lights flickered, and it was probably just from the wind blowing outside. Naturally, they were also accusations of people pushing the planchette just to try to scare everyone. Everyone took a turn promising that they had not been pushing the planchette. After the boys had settled down, we resumed with the questions. Can you give us another sign? Yes. DOGS. Now, a quick note. My aunt and uncle owned a lot of foxhounds, 12 of them to be exact. My uncle bred them and would train the puppies for hunting and then sell them. When the planchette spells out dogs, we were all naturally curious what would happen. When we heard the dogs start howling one by one, pretty soon they were all howling. Jared shook his head and started laughing. Tim asked what was so funny, and he said, it's pretty obvious this is all bullshit. The board isn't real. I mean, come on, you know the dogs are trained for hunting, and they always start baying if anything moves around their kennel. Plus, we live on a mountain, so there's always rabbits, squirrels, coyotes running around. I'm not convinced that the board really works. As he finished saying that, the planchette moved to no. It moved away and then went back to no again. It then proceeded to spell out the words FIRE, fire, and WOOD, wood. The flames of 2 candles we had on the table began to flicker and crackle. The flames grew taller, and then both candles tipped over on the table, the wood coffee table. Sydney quickly blew them out before it could start a fire. Again, Jared shook his head, and he said he wasn't going to believe it. It was just a coincidence. He decided to go outside and try and get the dogs to quiet down. Tim decided to go with him, and they both went upstairs out to the backyard. After they left, Sydney looked at me. I didn't want to say anything while they were here because I didn't want to scare them, especially Tim, but I swear I've seen a figure moving in the shadows around the room. It looks like a woman, but I can't tell for sure.
I'm not sure if it's real or just my eyes messing with me because it's almost 3 a.m. I told her I had seen the figure too. She was relieved upon hearing that and was glad she wasn't the only one seeing it. She was glad she wasn't going crazy or hallucinating. A few minutes later, the boys came back. They both seemed shook up and asked if we were okay. Jared said they were able to get the dogs to quiet down, and then they noticed something strange. 2 of the dogs had scratch marks on their backs and ears. The dogs were well trained and didn't really get rough with each other, and the dogs' claws were too small to have made scratch marks. I should note that on rare occasion, mountain lions have been spotted in the mountains, so they reasoned that a mountain lion could have been the reason the dogs were barking and that some of the dogs had scratches from them. A few years prior, a mountain lion had killed one of the neighbor's young colts, and if there had been a mountain lion prowling around, then my uncle's horses and the neighbor's horses would have been going crazy, making a lot of noise. Jared said the horses were all sleeping soundly in the barn. However, there was something else they found outside that could not be attributed or explained away by a mountain lion. In the middle of the yard, near the trampoline, they had found a chunk of burning wood. They were able to quickly douse it with water from the hose. They had no idea how the wood got there or how it had started burning. Yes, we had used the fire pit earlier in the night when we were playing outside, but they knew that we had doused all the wood really good with the hose before we decided to go into the house for the night. Since everyone was significantly spooked, I decided it was a good idea for us to close out the board and find something else to do. Surprisingly, Jared and Tim wanted to keep playing with the board, even though they were both still shaking from what they had seen outside. We all put our fingers back on the planchette and started asking more questions. Did you start the fire outside? Yes. Did you scratch the dogs? Yes. Why did you do that? And then it spelled out, you asked for a sign. Are you really here? Yes. Is someone just playing tricks? No. There was a slight breeze and the room started to feel a bit cold. Sydney then asked a question. Were you the figure I saw moving in the shadows? Yes. What do you want? And then it spelled out, scare you. You want to scare us? Yes. Why? Then it spelled out, fear and power. Fear gives you power? Yes. Then it spelled out, are you afraid yet?
This doesn't sound good, Jason.
No, it doesn't sound good at all. Yes, we are. And then it spelled out, liar. We're not lying. We are really scared. Then it spelled out, not yet, but you will be. The energy in the room was starting to feel heavier and darker. That would have been goodbye, sage, cleanse, everything. Tim and Jared immediately both asked if we could stop playing and get rid of the board. They said they were really scared and didn't want to play anymore. I said yes, we could close out the board and just be done with it. Sydney said she wanted to ask a few more questions. I wish I would have just stopped there and got rid of the fucking board.
Seriously.
Are you a person? No. Then what are you? It spelled out monster. Tim started to cry and said he didn't want to play anymore. Jared agreed with him and told Sydney enough was enough. She wanted to ask one final question. What is your name? Naust. I immediately recognized the name it was spelling out and cut it off before it could finish spelling it out. I looked at Sydney and said no more and tried to pull the planchette down to goodbye. It was a bit of a struggle to get the planchette to move to goodbye as the figure we had been communicating with was trying to stop us. We were finally able to get the planchette once a goodbye. We all said goodbye, and then we took the planchette off the board. My aunt always kept a crucifix hanging on the basement living room wall. I asked Sydney to grab it and bring it to the table. I had her place it on the board and told everyone to put their fingers on it. I then spoke out loud to the figure in the shadows. I said, this session is over now. You are not welcome here. In the name of God, be gone from here. After that, the coldness in the basement went away and the energy seemed lighter and happier. Tim and Jared were relieved that it was over and they set to work tearing up the board. We took pieces of the board and the planchette out to the backyard and burned them in the fire pit. I buried the ashes afterward for good measure. Sydney asked why I stopped the planchette from spelling out the name, and I told her I could see that the boys were terrified and I wanted to end the session. I told her it was a demon we had been talking to, and her eyes got pretty big and her face went pale.
I was going to ask, like, when he was spelling out the name, I have no idea where that name was going.
But I figured it was when it started to spell it out that it was probably some sort of known demon.
Right. Especially since Jason recognized what it was spelling out.
Exactly. Yeah. She asked how I knew that, and I had said I had encountered this particular demon once before, and if we had continued talking to it, nothing good was going to come from it. She asked what was the demon's name, and I told her I wasn't going to say its name. I didn't want to give it any more power. Thankfully, my aunt had some sage in the garage, and I was able to cleanse everyone before we went back into the house. After that experience, I have always taken great care to make sure I protect myself whenever I use a Ouija board. I never told my cousin what the demon's name was. The demon we encountered is a low-level demon that likes to scare people and give them nightmares. It gets pleasure from tormenting people. This particular demon works closely with one of the infernals. Infernals are the most powerful demons in existence. Thankfully, after that night, I have not encountered that demon again. My cousins never mentioned it again either, as we made a pact to never tell anyone about the Ouija board story.
Oh,
I guess except us and all of our listeners. But he changed names, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It did have a profound effect on all of us. We all started to suffer from depression that slowly worsened as the years went by. The depression was not solely caused by this event, but the event did make the depression get worse. When Sydney became a teenager, she started using drugs in high school. She got pretty deep into drugs until she got pregnant with her daughter, and then everything started to get better for her. I believe that her daughter saved her life. Sydney did go to a therapist for a while, and it really helped her get her life back on track.
I'd like to say good job, Cindy.
Yes.
Good job.
Good job.
Seeking the help that you needed and getting your life together for your daughter. Well done.
Yes. She is now happily married. I fell into a deep depression, and having an abusive older stepbrother made it worse. I'm sure you probably heard my story that the ladies read on the Two Girls, One Ghost podcast in Encounters, episode 204, that I did attempt suicide when I was 21, and Lilith came to my rescue.
Oh, I love Lilith.
I love Lilith too. And I'm glad that she was there to rescue.
Yes, I am. And I'm very sorry to hear that your depression got that bad.
Yeah. I'm now using my skills as a medium to help others connect with their loved ones on the other side. Jared and Tim both started drinking a lot when they got to high school and even after high school. Sadly, Jared did end up taking his life in 2018.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That has to be so tough. I have also lost a cousin at a young age, so I know how that feels. Tim started going to church after high school, and he also went to see a therapist. He is doing much better now and happily married. I apologize for the length of this email. Never, ever apologize. We love your stories.
Yeah, seriously. We want all the details.
All of the details.
Every detail.
Don't leave a single thing out. And I hope that my story was not too scary for you. It was terrifying, but I loved it. I hope that you will read it on your podcast. We are. And I have other stories I can send you if you are interested.
Yes, we are.
Please send us all of the stories. You are a great storyteller, and I love it. So send them all. Keep up with the good work on the podcast. Oh, thanks. Maybe one day we can do a collaboration between our podcast. Absolutely. I don't know what podcast you have, but I'm sure I can go on the Discord and find out.
Yeah.
And yes, I would love that. Your friend, fellow podcaster, and avid listener.
Jason, I want to thank you so much for writing all of that out. It was fascinating. We want all of your stories, and tell my dad I said hi.
Yeah, there you go. And then there was one other small story from Steph, who also got it from the Discord for Two Girls, One Ghost. But this one's very short because I know we are a little longer today than what we usually are.
I would like to say same thing with the one episode, because we did mention mental health struggles and suicide.
Yeah. That
if you are struggling, you're having thoughts of suicide, even thoughts of, I wish I wasn't here, but not active plans, please reach out to a trusted individual, and you can dial 988 for emergency mental health resources.
Absolutely. Okay, so Steph wrote, My friend Melissa and I used to commune with a board that was like a Ouija board, but called it something different, heaven or something. It was blue and purple, and it had clouds and a sun and a moon on it. The planchette looked pretty normal, if maybe not a little bit smaller. My friend and I would play this outside at night, like while camping in the backyard. I clearly remember an entity that wanted us to call it Stephen was in contact most often. He wanted to introduce other entities, but we were afraid of opening the door too wide. Stephen was mostly respectful of that. We talked a little with Stephen about family and figured he lived in the 1920s from the small clues that were given. So again, just a quick short story, but
Thank you for writing in, Steph.
Took the time. I wanted to make sure we read it. So that brings us to the end of this episode about paranormal games, where every rule is a whisper from the unknown, each move a step into the mysterious, and the outcomes always uncertain.
If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. Your support helps us reach more listeners and share even more spooky stories.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at Not My Ghost, Not My Problem. We post updates, photos, and more.
If you want even more ghostly content, consider joining our Patreon. We have some fantastic exclusive perks for our supporters.
Our supporter. Currently, we have one. We have one. Thanks, Danny.
Shout out to Danny.
Love you, girl.
And if you have ever had a spine-tingling paranormal encounter, share your story with us at notmyghostpodcast@gmail.com. You might just hear it featured on a future episode.
Thank you for joining us on this bone-chilling journey into the realm of paranormal games. And remember, the next time you get the urge to connect with the other side through one of these spooky games, keep this in mind.
If it's not your ghost,
it's not your problem.
Until next time, stay spooky
and stay skeptical.